I want to take a minute to thank the men and women of the Border Patrol for their hard work, and to thank so many of them who I know work to save lives on the border every day. I also want to note that we can absolutely address the root causes of this crisis, which are multiple, and improve conditions for migrants and secure our border without taking up controversial issues like the Flores decision. Mr. Morgan, 3 weeks ago, I asked CBP's Chief of Law Enforcement Operations Directorate, Brian Hastings, about the conditions at the Clint, Texas Border Patrol facility, following reports by a group of lawyers sent to inspect the facility describing the horrid conditions endured by migrants detained there. Mr. Hastings repeatedly dismissed the reports as not true, and he implied that the lawyers were exaggerating solely to advance the case of their clients. Only 6 days later, Ms. Costello issued a report about facilities in the Rio Grande Valley, depicting some of the same troubling conditions as reported by the group of lawyers that inspected the Clint facility. Mr. Morgan, I have been to the border twice, and I get that the Border Patrol is overwhelmed and that its agents feel like they are under fire. However, our job in Congress is to conduct extensive oversight and to use that oversight as a way to help drive our funding decisions and to uphold our values. When senior officials from the Border Patrol refuse to be transparent or seek to mislead Congress, it does serious damage to the credibility of the entire Border Patrol. It exacerbates agents feeling as if they are under fire. And most importantly, it undermines the security and humanitarian mission that we are all grappling with. It keeps us from addressing the root causes in the way we need to. So to that end, Mr. Morgan, please answer yes or no to the following. Will you commit to giving Congress full visibility into the Border Patrol, its detention practices, its treatment of all migrants, and any credible allegations made by detainees?
Yes.
Do you have the support of your superiors, namely the acting Homeland Security Secretary and the President, to be fully transparent with Congress as you deal with this crisis?
Unquestionably, I do.
Thank you. Will you take appropriate action if any CBP or Border Patrol subordinate seeks to mislead or deceive Congress or the American public?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Morgan, there really are two different crises occurring at our border facilities. The first is the lack of supplies and space driven by the huge surge in migrants. Congress has passed an aid package to address this surge with our own surge of resources. More needs to be done, and it will be. However, the second crisis is much deeper. Allegations of cruel and the illegal treatment of migrants in Border Patrol's custody have plagued the agency in recent weeks. These allegations include the sexual assault of an underage migrant, the attempt to humiliate a migrant by forcing him to wear a sign that says, quote, "I like men," close quote, and intentional deprivation of basic necessities of migrants, including children, as a way to punish them. Mr. Morgan, this troubling pattern of the Border Patrol's culture, and I know it's not everybody in Border Patrol, has to be addressed immediately. What steps are you taking right now to change this culture?
First of all, I think we have to be cautious about when there are allegations that have not been fully adjudicated yet to refer to this as a pattern or part of a culture. I don't believe that, ma'am. I served as chief of the United States Border Patrol, and I would not say what you described is a culture within the Border Patrol or a pattern. But what I will say, and I promise and commit to you, is that any allegation will be thoroughly and completely investigated, and anybody, any man or woman in the United States Border Patrol or CBP that violates their oath and violates what they swore to do and uphold, I assure you that they will be held accountable for and properly disciplined.
Well, I thank you for that. I will note that the revelation about the Facebook page and the number of people participating in that tends to give credence to the notion that there is a troubling culture, at least among some of the officers. And what I'm trying to just get at is what you are doing to make sure that you are disrupting that culture and improving it.
Yes, ma'am. And on the Facebook of the 1015, I would be more than happy to offline come to your office and provide you an extensive brief of exactly what we're doing in that matter as well. But I will say one of those posts that we all know about is horrendous.
Yes.
Absolutely, hands down. But I can assure you that overall, this is a very small group of Border Patrol agents.
Ms. Costello, do you think CBP is doing enough in terms of addressing the issues of culture that I just outlined?
So we don't really have any information on what they're doing in the culture, but I can tell you that we're also looking into that Facebook issue, not so much the conduct of the specific agents themselves, which is better investigated by CBP's Office of Professional Responsibility. But what we are looking into is the allegations that leadership knew and was using the site for information. So who knew what when, and was appropriate action taken and when it needed to be. So I think perhaps in the course of that review, some information about culture might be elicited.
Thank you.
And if I could add, ma'am,
Yes.
we are working with the IG, you know, every day. And Facebook, for example, I mean, right away, we got with the IG and we continue to work with them.
Well, I appreciate this. I just do want to point out that it is going to be very important that you all are transparent about what you do and don't know. As you investigate allegations, you have to be transparent with us and the American public so we can improve, because these kinds of reports and these kinds of behaviors that are reported and the conditions are really hampering our capacity to address a security and humanitarian crisis at our border, and that's something we all need to do together.
You have my absolute commitment to full transparency.
Thank you. I have one other issue, and I'm going to touch on it very briefly because I'm just about out of time, but it's come to my attention, Mr. Morgan, that in May, a Customs and Border Protection subcontractor, a company called Perceptics, was a victim of a cybersecurity breach. Hackers stole tens of thousands of photos of travelers' faces and license plates collected by CBP on the U.S.-Mexico border from the subcontractor's network and then leaked these images publicly. This breach has serious implications not only in cyberspace, but also for the security of our borders. It's my understanding that this data was not supposed to be present on the subcontractor's network to begin with, and that CBP has since terminated this contract. However, this begs a bigger question about the vulnerability of CBP because its contractors seem to not be taking subcontractors seem not to be taking cybersecurity seriously. So I would, realizing my time is about up or over, what I'd like to do is work with you and follow up with questions about this to ensure that the contractors and subcontractors adhere to the highest cybersecurity standards.
Absolutely.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Langford.